Hello. And welcome to What the Fiction presents What If. I'm your host, Kyle. Because that's what happens when you ask, what if Kyle does a show and Marie Claire sits back and co-hosts and doesn't have to do as much work? Supposedly.
Supposedly.
I mean, Marie Claire did all of the assets you just saw, the delightful intro and all the bits and pieces and the colorful art and the beautiful character concepts. So welcome to our deep dive into the What If series, premiering with What If Captain Carter were the first Avenger.
Yeah. Hello.
Marie Claire, my co-host today.
I'm Marie Claire, and I'm not actually hosting this show this time because there's a few times I might not be able to make it, but we will have some other stuff going on. I just love that it's got the Captain America.
Yep, this is my Captain America specialty hat. I am a collector of hats, and my friends who love me one year came together and bought this crazy hat that they saw, and they said, Kyle loves Marvel and hats, so let's get him that. And I very, very rarely find good opportunity to wear this one. It kind of stands out.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And I don't have a motorcycle with a sidecar where I could sit in the sidecar all tucked up and hold on to my hat, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Because of that.
You're driving this motorcycle, though, today,
Exactly.
and I'm in the sidecar.
That's true. I'll drive this motorcycle. I took my sunglasses already off, though, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I hope I have a hat that fits every one of these 10 episodes.
That would be amazing.
That would be delightful.
Yeah.
So let's sit back and enjoy and delve into what is and has been one of the best animated episodes of TV I think I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, I
Wow.
loved it so much. It was better than a couple of Transformers episodes I saw when I was a kid. It's better than almost every My Little Pony episode. There's a couple standouts that unfortunately,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
still remain 1 and 2. But it was incredible. What did you think?
So I really loved it. I sort of just was in a giddy watching mood the whole time, and so I kind of just giggled a lot when I was watching it because to me the whole concept is just pure joy. I was really hesitant when I was originally thinking about like covering the show, and because of a few reasons I might not be able to make all episodes. So Kyle convinced me that he could host this whole thing. So
Yes.
I'm giving you over the channel for what if Kyle were the host of What the Fiction. That's kind of what we're doing. But I was a little hesitant when I came to this concept. I know the what if idea has been around for a while, but I really, really loved the execution of it. I know some people, there's like weird commentary out there on the internet about a lot of stuff. And I might not dig into it too much because it's not how I felt about it at all. I really, really loved this episode.
Yeah, me too.
But there is some other stuff that we do want to dig into. So do you want to get started?
Yeah. Let's kick it off.
Yeah.
What if? So this episode might be a little, our talk today might be a little longer than all of the other ones. I mean, we're looking at a 35-minute cartoon, and there's lots to dig into and talk about from an analytical perspective, from a storytelling perspective, from a structural perspective, from the MCU perspective. But why don't we start at the root of it all and ask, why do we even need a what if ... question mark?
Yeah. So I did notice, I think it was like Direct MCU or something like that, posted an article where they had the Disney release order for the MCU has come out. And it says that this comes directly after Loki. Loki comes directly after Endgame from a logical place that you're supposed to watch it, because of course Loki and this will jump all over the place. And then it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier or WandaVision and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So why do we need this show, right? Because that's, to me, is like they're spending a lot of money. They're getting big name actors to voice the voices they've played in the MCU.
I can speak to that.
Okay, yeah.
85% of the voices in this show are people who have come back to do the show. And they initially had found near voices. That's what they were called. They've gone out and found near voices.
Yeah, like Vanessa Marshall commonly plays Gamora in the Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon. Like, they have a lot of voice actors that can go.
They were going after people, though, that were near to the MCU characters' voices.
Oh, interesting.
So if you want Gamora, you have to go find somebody who sounds like Zoe Saldana.
Oh, interesting.
Not somebody who sounds like Gamora.
Yeah.
So here's the cool part is that the executive producer, I want to say his name is Brad. Let me just double check this. Yes, Brad Winderbaum. The executive producer went out and he was like, well, we'll see, because this was a long time ago. We should point out that this started, this what if thing got the green light and got rolling years ago before we finally got these 10 episodes. And so, like, years.
Yeah, like we've talked about how long timelines are in Star Wars for animation. Like, this was even longer.
We're talking 2017 pitching, 2019 recording. So before the pandemic, everything was pretty much done in this for voice work and whatnot. Anyway, so 85% came from the fact that they said, well, we'll just reach out,
ask,
and see who's interested. And the people just came in droves.
That's
the people
so fun.
Responding with the yes. And the funny thing is that they weren't able to get everybody.
Yeah.
And the reason for some of them, I think, had to do with contract purposes and with creating a full end stop to the character. So in this episode, as much as it sounds like it's Chris Evans, it is a near voice to Chris Evans in this episode. And they weren't, and Johann Schmidt, our Red Skull, they were not able to get, and his name always falls out of my head.
Oh.
They weren't able to get him either. Elrond. I can name all of his characters, Mr. Smith, but I cannot name the person.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody in the comments will be like, that
would be
guy.
Perfect.
But it did sound like him a lot, like
exactly.
so much.
So they were trying to get near voices to the MCU, but they can't, like the small characters they were able to get them. If you had a bit role and they wanted you to have a couple of lines, they asked you.
Yeah.
Like, it was so neat. And then of course, due to conflicts, structure, the measure, the sheer bulk of all of this, some people just got left on the cutting room floor, or the email to their agent was missed, or their agent didn't forward it on in time for it to be caught. So Dave Bautista, who plays Drax the Destroyer, he's like, you didn't even ask me. And they're like, well, we thought we had.
Thank you, Josh Taylor. Hugo Weaving.
See,
yes.
That is a name that you should not forget, and yet it is not woven into the fabric of my existence for me to remember.
Yeah, I do much better on the streaming show coming up with names when we did it on Saturdays instead of I've had a full day of work and now I'm doing a streaming show. So
this is an MCU production, which means that it's Kevin Feige at the top. They had to get Kevin Feige's sign off on this. And when they talk about, does this connect in, does this tie in, this is animation, and the rest of it is all live action, and you've never tied in animation before, they said, no, it is, and it's all tied into the MCU proper because it drives right up from Kevin Feige himself. So it's all been worked into the storylines of the things that they want to tell in all of the stories to come.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, just on that, I immediately began trusting it.
Yeah.
And then I found out who was the top executive producer, like the one who's really like stick handling the show. I mean, there's a couple like Victoria Alonso and Kevin
Victoria
Feige.
Alonso is on like everything because
and Danielle, and I forgot her last name. They're all big, but there's always an executive producer who's the number one. You're the showrunner. It's all up to you. And she just so happens to be the writer as well. And I am talking about A.C. Bradley, born in the late 1800s, died in the 1960s, one of the greatest Shakespearean critics of all time. In fact,
not that A.C. Bradley. No.
What if? No,
Yeah.
no, it's in fact a very different AC Bradley, who I did not tell Marie Claire before this, won a daytime Emmy for her writing work on Troll Hunters.
Oh, wow.
And third degree or 3 degrees below, or whatever that other one was called with the aliens.
Yes.
That's
all part of the
big Troll Hunters
yeah,
universe.
that's cool.
That
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro was writing. So
not
the right name?
not Benicio
Dang
del
it, did I get
Toro.
it wrong again? I always get his name wrong too.
You get everybody's names wrong
Oh,
today.
I'm
It's
terrible.
fine.
Should I
But
write-
yes. So
AC Bradley
yeah.
is just a delight, a sheer
She is the cutest voice. I
delight.
watched like a mini clip that you showed me before, and she seems very, very smart too. So, I mean, she must be a huge fan to know like how this all plays out, and then also common like, comic things that have happened in the actual comics to say, oh, we could pull on that thread, or we could insert that, or
Yeah. So
because there's a Captain Britain moment, and
it
like
almost seems like a Captain Britain moment. And especially with the sword and drawing the sword from the stone.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get to that. We'll get to the episode itself. But first, I want to talk. So,
But why?
structurally, why is because AC Bradley had ideas.
Right. Okay.
And she saw things that were happening in the MCU. And she said, you also have this thing that you've been doing for a very long time where you
In your
ask
comic
questions
books.
in the comic books. And we could do that here and make the whole world a bigger place. And I have a really important point that I want to make about that. But I want to pass it over to you because I
Sure.
think you had some what if whys that you wanted to talk about.
Like to my point about its placement in like the MCU and when you're supposed to open it up, it's almost like the 2 minutes that it took in Into the Spider-Verse to explain the multiverse. They want to give more people an opportunity to open up their minds to the idea that, hey, we already know we're going to get all the spider people in the new Spider-Man. So they really want to say like all of this is possible, and what better way than to tell us some stories on top of that give us some entertainment. Also, it's a lot of fun to explore these concepts, and my hope is that it actually breaks people of sort of what they were able to break people of over the years with the comics by saying, oh, hey, this is Ultimate. This is the Ultimates run. This is the new run of Spider-Man. This is the Amazing Spider-Man. This is the Spider-Man 2084 or whatever run. It's going to break people, I hope, of the concept that there can only be one right way to tell a story, and that you can tell a lot of stories with the same ingredients. That's my hope, personally, because it's transformational and dope. And anyone who like reads fan fiction, this is just, AU stuff all over again, right?
That's what I was going to mention. My big final point on the what if is it legitimizes every fanfic out there when a production company themselves ask a what if and change a principal point of the story and then legitimizes it with, $1 million production. Brad Winderbaum, the executive producer who stands next to AC Bradley working on this, because they seem to do everything in pairs in the Marvel side of things.
That's what they seem to be doing with the shows.
He had never done any animation stuff. So he basically was put through animation boot camp on how to direct and produce and put together an animated show. Back in the day, and he has moved his way through all of this to the point where he and the other 2 executive producers that are not Victoria Alonso and Kevin Feige working on the whole big picture of this, but these 3 have been basically given the green light to do more animation beyond a second season of this. So we should be expecting more MCU driven animated television in the next few years to come.
That's so neat.
So you heard that here, not first probably because you might be interested in this stuff, but hey, I was overwhelmed because not only did I love the animation and the voice work, but the production quality and the way they approached everything in the episode we've seen leads me to feel like we're in safe hands, and everything they're going to produce to come is just going to be from a perspective of thoughtfulness and forward future thinking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So what is What If?
Yeah, what is it?
Okay, so in 1977, somebody asked Marvel, what if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four? And apparently it was such a big question that they decided to create What If comics that came out from 1977 to 1984, pretty much every single month. There was a What If comic that came out, and they detailed the wild and the weird and the wacky, but also at the same time, extremely pivotal, monumental pieces, and then would largely derive from the comic books that they were taking from. So instead of Spider-Man working on his own, he had joined the Fantastic Four, and they became like the Fabulous Five or something like that, and they all had fives on their costume, and it's just hilarious. But there's nowhere on the internet that I've been able to find over the last week and a half of researching this is to find out why Stan Lee and the rest of Marvel decided that this was a good idea. But I will say this, they had written some amazing comics. Mm-hmm. They had written some very benchmark history-making comics that they wanted to reference back to.
Yep.
And there's no better way to do that than to refocus the lens, and instead of telling the tale from somebody else's perspective, changing one key element in it and then seeing how it played out. And I don't doubt that in the editor's room and in the writer's room, they pondered these questions before they ever came up with the comics.
Yeah, I think so. And we can also see like how the first episode specifically is constructed. It pulls on that concept that we're going to be revisiting some of the things that we only briefly saw or we didn't get enough time with from a new perspective, which is such a good idea because then you get to spend more time in the universe and explore other things.
So What If ran from 77 to 84, this big monthly long stretch, and it basically petered out. By the last issue of it in 84, the readership had dropped precipitously and no one was really reading it anymore because the questions they were asking weren't the big ones anymore. They were like pulling from the bottom of the well at this point. And in 89, it launched again because they hearkened from a different perspective and they brought in Uatu the Watcher and they had a narrator and they had more. So it ran from 89 to 98, the longest run and stretch of it. But since that time, they've come out in snippet volumes in 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, and 2010. There was single limited runs of these that basically amalgamated into a single volume. Basically, not enough monumental things had happened in the Marvel universe, Earth 6 or whatever. I don't remember what they call the Marvel one. I think it's still might be Earth 616.
It's 616.
But what is important is that not enough stuff had happened over the course of those comics that was big enough that would draw people in. So they released limited runs with different ideas and themes and scopes. And what was really funny is that What Ifs began to derive their own What Ifs. And I know we were riffing on that during the run of Captain Carter, which we can get into a little bit in a moment. So basically, What Ifs then happened in 2013, 2014, and 2018 was the last of them. They basically stopped at that point, and I think I know why they stopped in 2018.
Because they decided to do an animated show.
Yeah, because they're like, you know what, we got to not do the comics. We have to do What If in the MCU now. We need to move it there because there's so much that can be done. And so What If contextually asks a single question and makes a single change. And so it sets an established scene that these things have already happened. And up until this point, it is the same. And then this change occurs.
Yep.
Once that change occurs, where do things go from there? And it is also interesting to note that they still largely follow the same trajectory. many of the same things will still happen with potentially different outcomes,
Right.
and from different in different perspectives. And it's like it's like one of those find 'em puzzles that you used to get in a magazine where you're like, spot the 5 differences that are in this scene, and I'll show you some of those. And in this instance here, it's not spot the differences, it's spot the similarities.
Yeah.
You probably saw lots of them too. So if you saw any else that we haven't brought up, but feel free, throw them up in the conversation or hit us up afterwards on Twitter. But the why that I want to come back to, because it's on my note here, and I think what Marvel is doing is brilliant by doing the what if and asking these questions and making this a thing, because it will legitimize the fan created works, and the AU universe out there will then be, I think it'll be more robust, it'll be more valued, and it'll be more recognized.
Well, and it's also, this is perhaps the easiest way to bring in the X-Men and all of the other properties under the full MCU, is just to say, well, they all exist somewhere, right?
I mean, they do.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so side note.
Okay.
I want to talk to you all, because I didn't get to talk to you all about Loki and the TVA.
Okay.
So I'm just going to hop out of What If for a moment, and it's relevant to What If as well.
No,
So
I know.
I'll mention that.
Yeah. They use the same terminology as well.
They do, but I want to
Yeah.
specifically talk about the TVA,
Okay.
the Time Variance Authority. One, because I just read the second most recent issue of Cable in the physical comic book
It's like
form,
too
and
many
he
cables.
references the TVA. So it's a thing that's on the top of Marvel's mindset. And I have a theory that I would just like to espouse quickly before we move on.
Okay.
The TVA exists in its current function solely to ensure that the Kang who sits at the end of time, the man at the end of time, is the only Kang that happens at the end of time. He is perfectly content and fine with all these other various universes out there that don't lead to a Kang.
You mean the current Kang?
Yes.
With the Kang, like, in the TVA?
Yes.
Okay.
The guy
Interesting.
at the end of the universe, the end of the world, he's fine with every other, because he couldn't control all of the multiverses. It's not possible. You can't stop the multiverses from happening. But what you could do is stop the potential ones that come to a creation of Kang. And he needs to not let any Kang occur. And it's my theorem.
No Kang zone?
Yes, it's a no Kang zone. We're rooting for that. No Kang rooting. Okay. But the reason why I think that this is relevant and why my theory holds is there's the point where they're standing there and they're about to die and they fall in love with each other.
Yeah.
Right? And you can see the thing is about to explode.
Yeah.
Is because the two of them also need to be there at the end of time. He has required this as part of his I am the only Kang, and it comes to this choice.
Yeah.
And they were about to die. And if they died, it would all come to naught.
So he was about
because
to
the other
interfere?
Kangs would then arise.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I just wanted to Kang it up for a moment. We can Kang that out the door and get back to what was like an incredible 35 minutes of comic implanting into a cartoon, an animated show, which was the start of What If. And we start with the Watcher.
Who is the Watcher? Well,
it's Jeffrey Wright, your favorite actor from Westworld.
Yes.
You want to know something interesting? Uatu's been played in a ton of different animated shows. Did you know that he has been played by so many famous, fabulous voice actors?
Really?
That Clancy Brown has played him twice.
Yay, Clancy Brown. I love Clancy Brown's voice. I just shout out to Jeffrey Wright for doing Theater of War. I saw him do a production of it, and he was fabulous. So
was it Oedipus Rex? That the one he did? Did he do Lear?
Trying to remember what he did. Yes, but he was great. So, and his voice is just fabulous.
Uatu, the Watcher. Uta. Who's Uta? All right. I bet that did an auto correction on poor Jesse there.
So who is the Watcher? Kyle?
He who watches. He is the giant man who lives on the moon and looks and watches things.
Okay, but he literally is like the Netflix guy who's like, "Are you still watching this?" Like,
Yes, he's the guy I used to watch. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
he's the guy who's like asking if you're still watching this in Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have some notes. Uatu was created in 1963 by Stan Lee. In 2014, the seminal work of Uatu.
Yeah.
And like literally changed how we view Marvel happened. It was the death of the Watcher, and they tried and had to figure out who it was that had killed He Who Watches. What Uatu does is he frames the story to allow for external narration.
Okay.
So I honestly don't think he really has any other need than that. And if you delve into that need, then you start to enter into like the Celestials, the Eternals, the Elementals, and it gets even more far-flung. You're like, all of the different Watchers, and Uatu is the only one who watches Earth. And
he's just a dude who watches.
Yes.
It's a little creepy, but okay.
But it does allow for that external narration, and we then have a lens by which to view the show.
Because typically in comics, like the only narration that you get is internal monologue. You don't get too much external narration except for maybe a setup paragraph at the start of a comic. And so this allows us to have consistent narration through the comic.
A constant point of reference.
Yeah. And also to probably qualify things too. Why was this important? Why is this cool? Why is this interesting? As well.
Just so you know, we're not drinking water, Marie-Claire and I. We are, of course, having vodka seltzers. Mine's a pineapple mango. What are you having?
Blueberry pomegranate.
Delicious.
Yep.
So feel free to hop in and grab yourself a hard seltzer.
Yeah. You should. Yes, definitely.
Make your own with a soda stream or some other fizzy maker.
Soda related. Just have soda with vodka. That's fine too.
Yeah. Jesse's commenting on the fact that the Watcher does interfere sometimes because he's bad at his job. And I think it's not necessarily that he's bad at his job. It's that he cares.
Yeah.
And he has grown familiar with the people he is watching. And how can you not? I mean, we start to feel empathy and care for the characters that we see on the screen. In fact, to take it back to the late 1800s into the 1900s, A.C. Bradley, the great Shakespearean critic, oftentimes the criticism about him is that he treated all of Shakespeare's characters like real people. So it's not a thing of the modern day. People who were reading plays and watching live theater also found ways of connecting and communicating and creating empathy with the performers that they were watching in front of them.
That's my comfort Shakespearean character. Thank you very much. A.C. Bradley, probably.
Probably, yes.
You stay away from him?
I don't doubt. So,
that's my child. Yeah. My question for you though is, okay, so we know we have the Watcher. We know we have this whole setup. He's telling these stories and he kind of starts it out by explaining where we are. I don't know if we'll get the preamble every episode because they kind of assume you're going to be watching the whole thing on a streaming show. So we might not get that preamble as much, how much he explained in the first episode. My question is, to Jesse's point that he interferes sometimes, will there actually be stakes at the end of this? Will he interfere in some fundamental way to say, knock, 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 Doctor Strange, or something that will trigger something that is happening in the rest of the MCU? Will it be that interconnected?
Yeah, so the rumor on the street is that this is not the only episode that Captain Carter is in.
Yeah,
that's the rumor that's out there.
Well, it's in the trailer. The trailer has her in another situation, which I do have a slide for at the end.
Yeah,
so.
And I would think that if that's the case, that might be the Watcher
nudging
moving
things.
pieces on the chessboard himself. especially because these are external worlds that are not part of the sacred timeline.
Yeah, but it would also give it more gravitas to say, like, stuff is moving in the multiverse already.
Exactly.
And to say, hey, that's where we're going. It doesn't, like, I think there was a lot of concern that these stories wouldn't mean anything. And so why am I paying attention to it? They're fun, for one, and they're really awesome, and they're really cool. But I do actually think with Loki doing what it did, it's going to say something. I'm not sure 100% what that's going to be just yet, but there is going to be something that's going to happen.
Also, what a great way to give you a taste of something you've already seen. Because if you're watching What If Captain Carter was the first Avenger, we're the first Avenger, grammar, then if you're watching it, you've already seen the first Avenger.
Yeah.
You have already seen that movie. You've probably seen all of the Captain America movies, and you can relate to those pieces in the movies. So what a better way to give you a 35-minute snippet that's different to draw you back and be like, now I kind of want to watch the first Avenger again.
Well, it makes me want to rewatch the Peggy Carter show, like the Carter show.
It pulls the same threads.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've talked enough about who the Watcher is. Let's move on to some commonalities in between the two. And these are my two favorites here. And that is when Peggy, the box opens up. Even the way she's standing there is almost exact same, and the way the head is tilted is exactly the same as well. And then later on, when they're frustrated about things that are going on, they're both punching a boxing bag, and they both do the exact same forward punch cross to knock the bag into the wall. With the same foot forward, the same strike. His is a little down when hers was straight through.
Yeah, but that could be animation choice. Like, I didn't really go into how the style reminded me of Star Wars Resistance a lot, especially the squish and stretch, which I've talked a lot about with Alex Leonis on What the Force when we talked about Star Wars Resistance. But this episode, particularly, especially when she hits the guy in the jewels, his face just goes out of whack and like, it's really entertaining and really cool. And I mean, it leans into the animation style that it's going with, but it also kind of reminded us both of Iron Man Armored Adventures, which we both loved the animation for that and loved it itself, but it suffered from a few challenges to do with the cell shading where things were overly dark or overly hard to see or distinguish. And so I feel like it fixed kind of all of those things. It is a particular animation style. A lot of people hated Star Wars Resistance animation style, but I love it. I love this cell shading look.
A lot of people have, or at least a couple people that I've read on the internet, said that the cell shading really, this art style really shines in the action moments and with action scenes. But when you have close, intimate exchanges between characters, there's just not enough going on to make you feel like you're connecting with those people who are having an emotional connection.
You would almost have to over-exaggerate their facial reactions to get more out of it. I don't know that this episode suffered from that in particular. But really amazing work at understanding exactly what was happening in those moments, and then also knowing everything else that's happening in the universe to make this what if successful. So the what if,
show us another one.
All right. Oh no, this is me, because she's huge. Because she's huge now. Right. So shout out to my good friend Gwendy, who's an artist, and you should definitely check out her stuff. Gwendy85, I believe, is her @ on Twitter. She, like, a few months ago, everybody was obsessed with the Resident Evil, like, tall lady. I don't play the game, but everybody was obsessed with her. And now there's a new lady in town, and I am in love with how big and, like, just, like, powerful Captain Carter shows up to be. So I loved this so much, and I wanted to shout out the meme that's like the guy looking behind, like, haha, I've got a new tall lady.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, more of the changes that were happening here. This was one of my favorites. This happens. It was a hard one to find. I had to look for forever because I remembered as soon as I saw Captain Carter break out with the guys directly behind her, and it's Dum Dum Duggan and the other and the Winter Soldier on the right, and behind them the other two guys. I had seen that moment and I could not figure it out. It's because when it happens in the lower one in First Avenger, that is not when they break out.
No, it's later on. They're like
it's
raiding
the
things.
Segue of raids that they're doing.
It's like the when you do a
montage.
Yeah, words. Yeah,
it's a montage of raids, which we also got in Captain Carter. We got that at a different moment, which was just delightful. How there was still a montage of raids. And yet, at the same time, it was a different time in the movie.
Yep.
So, interesting.
This is cool.
Big change. So, I don't know if they just couldn't get Tommy Lee Jones or they didn't feel that Tommy Lee Jones's character was going to be a good fit with his gruff anachronism.
Well, because he supported Peggy no matter what, even if they had like kind of this like odd relationship. He was still really supportive, and I think that they were looking for a character that would have been more antagonistic towards her and offer her some conflict within her own ranks. And there is something that is resolved within that, and it was such an interesting choice.
Bradley Whitcomb, I think it's Whitcomb or Whitlock, one of those two. Bradley, I just know him now as Bradley.
He famously from The West Wing.
And from the dad on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, the dad on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, yes.
Of Andy Samberg's character. So we have Agent Flynn and Colonel Flynn. Now, you know Colonel Flynn from the show because he's kind of...
a jerk.
A douche in the show. Like, nobody likes him.
Do you have a rant in place for him?
No, I don't, because he gets his comeuppance real quick and easy, and he is ineffective. Actually, he only serves as a lens by which we will all further support and love Captain Carter, because who wants this guy in their life?
He's something to overcome for her in the story.
So nice in his place.
Yes, she does.
But you might not recognize him, especially if you were a big Agent Carter fan, and like we were, and you watched Agent Carter every single week on ABC for the 2 years we got of it, and then they axed it for reasons of, internal politics at Marvel. So this, though, it's not even on Disney Plus.
Nope.
This is the 13.5 minute, almost like the proof of concept
like
Agent
the
Carter
mini-sode, websode thing that came out.
Before Agent Carter came out, and it was Brad here as Agent Flynn, her boss in S.H.I.E.L.D. And what's really neat is the setting and the scenes and some of the backdrop that we get of her and S.H.I.E.L.D. and whatnot. Nothing
and the SSR.
The SSR, but we didn't get so much of that. But some of the backdrop pieces of like office stuff is taken directly from the background of this 13.5 minute show, where she basically, takes over and ousters Flynn by ignoring him
because he's kind of incompetent. And that was kind of a theme for Agent Carter as well, was like everybody was kind of incompetent around her except for the guy that she ends up like almost getting together with, but then Victor. That doesn't really matter in the end because timelines.
And then they moved Victor to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, which was whack.
Right? Like,
so
interesting.
They took him out of the timeline and put him into another timeline, which is also so interesting.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, I'm like, are we going to get Thor's roommate at any point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, So that aside, the biggest change between the first Avenger and Captain Carter is Agent Flynn and not Tommy Lee Jones. In fact, the whole so what is the moment of change? Uatu tells us the moment of change is when she decided to stay on the floor and
rather
not
than
go
up to the
top.
booth. Yeah.
She stayed on the floor, which means she spotted the guy too late, and he was able to kill two people, which was like, and everybody's saying, why you gotta do Stanley Tucci like that? Can we not just get him to live one time? Just once, could he? But they also kill Tommy Lee Jones' character in that scene, the two people that die there. So then he steals the vial before Skinny Steve can be turned into Captain America.
Yep.
And he gets shot. So
Skinny
now
Steve cannot be Captain America. He's dying. So they're like, we only have one shot at this. And so Peggy jumps in the machine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big changes come from little decisions.
Think
about that when you're writing or you're creating something like this, or you're thinking about your own what if that you want to create based on the MCU movies.
Yeah.
What is something small that could change that has lasting consequences? Because they gave us Captain Carter from one decision.
Yeah.
It was, and it all flows very, very logically from point to point to point throughout the course of this episode, which I love thinking about all the permutations that are going on here.
Yeah.
And somebody brought up a really important point, and we don't really have a slide on him as we move forward. And that is the delight that we get to see of Howard Stark.
Yes. Howard Stark. Yes.
The scene chewing that he gets to do.
Yes.
They're like, I took your USO costume and I made it better.
So was he the same actor?
Yes. That is the same actor.
Great. So
Yeah.
he was also in Preacher on AMC. Yeah. So yay.
Yes,
I love
he's a
having him
great
back.
actor.
Yeah. And also he was in Agent Carter as well. And we also got Jarvis as well as an actual person, the pre Jarvis actual human Jarvis, which if you haven't seen Agent Carter, it's a delight. Like, just go and watch it. It makes me want to watch it again this whole episode. So I do like that he gives her the outfit, which is part of the
He just
scene
basically
chewing.
goes right around Colonel Flynn.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm gonna empowers. You know what? You're a hero. Let's make you a hero. And then he does the exact same thing with Skinny Steve. He's like, you know what? You're a hero. Let's make you a hero.
Yeah. and then he gives her the shield, right? And already pre-painted, like no questions. Yeah. Like, yeah.
I tried to find a moment, but the moment when he's given the shield in the first Avenger, it's a very like aggressive scene because he holds the shield up and Sharon shoots him.
Yes, yeah.
And she has no idea that shield is bulletproof. She assumes it is, but it might just be a prototype.
She knows he'll be fine. Yeah. No, she's pissed at him, right?
And then just walks away.
But that's a really interesting point that we're going to get into in this episode a little bit later, and how different Sharon is.
Yes.
No, not Sharon. Peggy. Not Sharon.
You've
been saying Sharon.
I've been sharing too much.
Yeah, Peggy.
Captain
Margaret.
Carter. Captain
We're talking
Carter.
about Captain Carter. Okay.
But that moment where she gets the shield is just amazing, delightful. I loved it. And then right from the get-go of that, everything changes.
Yeah.
But this is the biggest change.
Oh, yes. Her being able to actually capture the Tesseract.
Yeah, she takes the Tesseract, something that Steve could never do. He couldn't do it. He wasn't able to get it until the end of the movie. She gets it in the first 10 minutes. She's like, I'm Captain Carter and I got the Tesseract. Huzzah, we win. And that changes Johann Schmidt's perspective and his direction the entire time as well. And so everything is spinning off the rails from a perspective of the movie that we have seen and know, and yet they keep drawing back to references. The raid on Castle de Crake is very similar to the final raid that had there. And even his moments, Johann Schmidt's moments, the Red Skull's moments there, played by not Hugo Weaving, because I remember his name now, his moments are similarly equal.
He certainly is motivated in the same way, but he doesn't have his mad scientist who is captured, right? He doesn't have his mad scientist to create all of these weapons that he needs to eventually use. He has no weapons, and so he has to think about other ways to go about things, and Hydra is significantly less powerful. It's more at the whim of the Führer. His actions take earlier course. It's all really interesting how these dominoes fall.
Yeah. And so Zach is mentioning how Captain Carter is so much more competent than Steve. And that makes sense because she was
literally in the secret science division for like years and years and years, and he was just a slub.
A schlub. Yeah. A schlub on the street who's done basic training. And then he spent however long, shilling out war bonds as Captain America. Like, he didn't even really know how to throw a punch. She knows how to throw a punch.
Yeah, she was trained. She's very smart. And she's had to fight within this patriarchy. And so what I absolutely loved about her also having her powers was the pure joy at having power and like not being afraid of that power. Never was she was afraid of that power. Yeah. It just felt like, yes, I am finally who I am meant to be, which is such a good way to go about it.
And she's so excited with her abilities that you feel like
joy.
There's literal joy when she flips the truck over her head, which I tried to find. And there's other moments where trucks have flipped like that, but it all harkens back to a DC movie, not any of the others where Batman gets the vehicle to flip over him. So I was trying to find one there, but I couldn't find an instance where that occurred, where anybody flips a truck over their head. So if you know where that came from, by all means, let me know, because I couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's 3,000 minutes, so it might be in there somewhere.
With the change of the Tesseract now, Domino is again, we get the Hydra Stomper, which is so cool. And it's, it's pulling in from Iron Man, and, the concept that these ideas, like, it wasn't too far for Tony to go from Howard to create, Iron Man.
But once again, Howard's like, oh yeah, Agent Carter got that, Captain Carter got that Tesseract. I need that Tesseract, Flynn. And he just takes it from him. And he's like, I'm gonna put it in a robot.
Yeah. I mean, like, they don't...
It's invulnerable.
Like, they don't get caught up too much with, like, they're just like, let's just run with it, which also is efficient from a storytelling perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in the top there, it's Hydra Stomper. And in the big screen there, that is Mark 1 of Tony Stark's Iron Man. Yeah. But the bottom left, I don't know if we're flipped on our screens or not, but the bottom one in the corner there flying is actually the Ironmonger that's piloted by Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie. And I have to say, Marie Claire was right that this Hydra Stomper has so much more that looks like the Ironmonger than the Mark 1 Iron Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, Obadiah knew Howard more, than say Tony did. And so,
I am wondering if Ironmonger, as a result of this, was actually plans that had been drawn up by Howard Stark that he then made, because like the thing opens up the same way. It's not armor that you walk around in, it's armor you move and control, and he puts Steve into that armor.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed out that there's a lot of Iron Giant like moments with the Hydra Stomper, and I agree. It feel like, especially that one particular moment, it looks like Iron Giants.
Yeah, there's another robot that will come up here in a moment that I will say derives even more from. But what I do love about this is that there is genuinely a love connection between Steve and Peggy, in the show. And we could see that in First Avenger, but in this, it is much more strong, prominent, and played up. And do you know why that is?
Why?
Because they fight together.
Yeah. They're partners.
They're a team.
Yeah, whereas she's like an object or like a reward for Steve in the first Avenger movie. This is different, right?
She never gets to bust down the doors and shoot the bad guys standing on the other side of Bucky.
Yeah.
And I puzzle now as to why that didn't happen. She was absolutely skilled capable enough to do it. You could see that she had the determination and the grit and the skill set to do it. Why'd you leave her on the sidelines?
Yeah, it seemed like a weird choice now.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see it at the time. Boy, do I see it now.
I do say, like, if you are a Stucky shipper, which, like, I read tons of Stucky fic when...
Which is Steve and Bucky,
Steve
for
and
those
Bucky.
who might not be aware.
The thing is about What If is that together in a multiverse, they are together somewhere. So I think it's really fascinating because they're not saying anything is canonically wrong. They're saying actually everything is right, which is such a cooler way to look at the universe and to fiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to mention Earth to Starchild, a couple of comments in the chat there, especially about Peggy Carter's decisions to be more overt in Paris, which is my favorite scene, hands down. And I'll talk about that at the end, why that is the case. But when she decides to not be covert and be overt, when she's like, I am big and strong and powerful, and I can stop all of these bad guys on my own right here in the open. I don't need to move around in the back. And going from covert operative to an overt operative freed her to make change in the world that she saw needed.
Yeah. And to say I actually have the power to change things. So I will. Yeah. I love this moment. I love, like, and the music itself play like that, like very 1940s music.
It's right out of First Avenger. It is different riffs of the First Avenger movie. Well, I watched so much of the First Avenger bouncing back and forth between them
to grab
that at certain
screenshots,
points I was like, what show am I watching? Because the music is so similar. It's really well done.
I love that she's like riding Steve. It's so good.
Yes.
And then it times quite well because there's like cymbal clashes and she's like punching people when there's cymbal clashes. They did a really great job. And then she rides him like this.
And you've seen this before. You don't know where, but it is also a Marvel movie. An animated Marvel movie. It is not part of the MCU, but it's Big Hero 6. And
yes. Well, Disney, not Marvel.
Yeah. Big Hero 6 is Marvel. It's a comic book. It's a Marvel comic book. And then Disney made it into a movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's all directly connected.
This is how he rides on Baymax. Yeah.
When Hero rides Baymax, it is exactly like this. And yes, Jesse, Hello from Brooklyn is a great reference there as well, as he's written that on his fists,
on
his arms.
Yeah.
So I love that. But this took me aback because it is the same relationship that Hero and Baymax have, right?
Yeah.
That familial connection that they have between each other. And then here we have Sharon Carter riding her good friend.
I like that there's like a handle.
Just for her.
So good.
It's perfect. And that's why they did it. So here it is, the Johann Schmidt connection. Here he is. He's opening up the box. He has discovered the Tesseract. What did you think of these scenes?
It felt like they just pulled the audio almost exactly from the moment. But then he gets obsessed with like where the thing is pulled from, right? Which I always thought was tree roots, but no, apparently it's saying something else.
Crazy.
So cool.
I love this connection. It's coming up the next slide. But I will point out what's interesting here. In the movie with Hugo Weaving, the guy is shot and then the camera turns as he opens it and then he's shot. In here, though, we see him shot in shadow. So there is a lot that's done in shadow work in Captain Carter that is not done in First Avenger. And I think it's brilliant because we see Erskine get captured and Sharon Carter's shadow looms large. And then we see another shadow overlay from the action that's happening as he opens the box. They kill the guy who is protecting it.
So it's like artistic, stylistic choices.
Exactly. And that's why you see the lines there, the guy's hands raising and then the gun fires behind in the crumple. And so all of this is in connection with the big door, which I didn't know, but Johann Schmidt has kept it.
And he's like, wait a second, that's not art. That's a tentacle monster.
Yes, that is the Hydra champion. Wow, he didn't get too much further in the book, you know, he wrote his essay on the first 3 chapters of the novel and did not read the last 18.
He really didn't watch those Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes
Oh my
either
God.
with the
Right?
other Hydra champion.
Yes, and it's in some ways I kept expecting to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the stones, the artifacts. I kept expecting to see something like that, and they
Like as
never
an
played to it.
alternative? Yeah.
That was tied into this, but they didn't bring it through,
Yeah.
which was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, that using shadows rather than blood helps keep the TV rating, which
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
And so I love this moment.
People thought it was Hive. I thought it was Hive too. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hive?
Hive is the sort of Hydra champion. He's the thing that can turn into things and like eat people
right,
and
that
stuff.
Ward
Yeah.
became?
Yeah, that Ward became.
Hive,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's really interesting. Not though at the end of the
Nope.
day.
Tentacle monster.
Delightful. I loved this so much that he kept the door
Yeah.
and that he kept the art and he constantly was referencing it.
It's very, very Timothy Zahn writes Thrawn of him.
Exactly. Very much the big bad sort of thing that he would do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, entirely misconstrue the tentacle monster. And I don't know why you... Anyway, it was a great short way to end the Red Skull.
Yeah.
But that leads to him not being there at the Soul Stone. So it's interesting to wonder what... I mean, we'll get some of that as we go along. All right. My joyful, jubilant favorite moment of the show. Marie Claire was on a call. I was not allowed to like laugh while I was watching it there. And Marie Claire like pauses her call and turns to me and she's like, "You're breathing really loud." Because I was trying so hard not to laugh at the perfect Howard Stark moment that this is.
Exactly. It's perfect.
So many people have taken the screenshot of Peggy and Steve looking at each other there, but no one's taken the screenshot of Howard getting all interested in their business while they get flustered and turn away, oh, I love it so much. This made the show for me. Right?
Yeah.
I could sit and watch Peggy Carter beat the snot out of Nazis for forever, but this made it memorable and it made me emotionally connect and made me realize that what I was missing in First Avenger was this moment here. These people recognizing the hero in each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just like, I love camp and I love romance, and this had all of that, which is great. Yeah.
And Marie Claire mentioned it earlier, and I feel it's exactly true, is that Howard Stark reminds us both so much.
Yes, of Varric from Avatar Korra, Legend of Korra. Like I literally expected him to say, "Julie, do the thing" at some point.
Yeah.
Because he was just so much like Varric. Like, well, we haven't done that yet. We might as well do it. Because also Korra leans into that like 1940s kind of vibe, especially with the electropunk style of the show itself. But like, yeah, just being an inventor and crazy ideas and just being like, we now have the stuff. Let's go do it. Julie, do the thing. Like, it just,
Yeah, I love this moment, and I love Varric in the cartoon, and I wonder how much of Varric is predicated on Howard Stark.
That's fascinating.
From the show and from that, like, he's an eccentric billionaire who's rich, and and like a Tony Stark style.
And we find out that Varric is actually just a variant of Howard Stark.
Yep.
She says with a completely straight face.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, so this scene speaks to the emotional connection that this what if brings us, that when we look back on the lens of the first Avenger, actually the show starts to pale quite a bit in my perspective, because they're supposed to be in love. It's supposed to be a love that stands time. He goes back in time to forever be with her.
Yes.
She waits for him. Right? Well, doesn't end up having to wait very long, because he literally just goes back in time to her.
Yeah.
So
as she's starting S.H.I.E.L.D.
And I still can't wrap my head around all the things that happen with that. But nonetheless, He goes and becomes a live-in house husband who hides from the world. I guess. And she goes on to big fame and fortune and splendor, working hard for S.H.I.E.L.D. He deserves a retirement anyway.
I mean, yeah.
So this, though, shows that they see each other as equals.
Yeah.
In ways that I felt that the first Avenger never did that.
And plays into my absolute height difference kink that I've got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good to know.
No, I love that it's the reverse of what we typically think about too, and that they look so cute together and there's no awkwardness, and it's wonderful. Yeah.
There really isn't any awkwardness between the two of them.
Yeah. They do it really well. Yeah.
Good old skinny Steve winning the heart of the big bruiser woman he loves. Instead lose Steve because the indestructible armor gets captured.
Yeah.
And this is a great line that details that. He's like, I thought you were going to rip my arm off.
Yeah, which is, I know a bunch of like Bucky stans who were very worried at that moment. But yeah, they played it really well to say like, oh, you thought it was going to go that way, but no, it's not. And again, this show does rely on you for maximum enjoyment to have understood what has happened in the MCU. So, you know, it does require a lot of, hey, you need to have seen most of the movies. Sorry. Yep. That's part of it.
Seen it and remembered it and internalized it and lived by it. And I mean, all the people who are making this stuff at Marvel
obviously have.
They obviously not only do they study the original material and then extrapolate from that to take the things that they feel are internal core concepts of those characters, but they also make them bigger and give them a place to grow and develop in this new environment. But what is interesting to note here, and the reason I threw this up, is that in canon, Bucky dies.
Yes.
And that is a big element to Steve Rogers' rise as Captain America.
He pushes forward and he does it for Bucky, right? Like that's the thing. And whereas this one is Steve is dead, and so Peggy continues on,
right,
to do it for Steve.
But Steve's just gone, presumed dead. But it's not very long until she's reunited with him.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, so, I mean, actually, it's not really so many years for both of them because he gets thrown in ice and then he wakes up and a couple days later he's like, oh, hey, it's Bucky, right?
Yeah.
So I guess in that regard. But, yeah, there's no Winter Soldier Steve, which I thought was interesting, but I like that it's Iron Man Steve.
Yeah, I like Iron Man Steve.
So this is great, and where Steve has been taken and the final linchpin, they've located and moved Johann Schmidt down. I hope you've caught the very obvious connections that they've been referencing throughout as they move to Castle de Kraken. Did you catch
it was
that?
Funny.
Castle de Kraken?
It was funny.
I hope you did.
It's funny.
They laid it out so obviously that they want you to go like,
oh,
you're so sneaky.
You're doing a jokey thing. Yeah.
But I love how this looks so much like the Disney castle.
I know. I was just thinking about that. I was thinking it looks like an evil Disney castle.
Yeah, it's evil Disney. Tinkerbell goes across. Instead, it's like a kraken.
A little tentacle comes out the front door. Yeah.
Like, it's just perfect. It's got that German style background of the Enchanted Forest, the Black Forest, and we have this beautiful standing castle where I don't know if this was a line from the show either, but it's like, I'll go high, you go low, and we'll meet in the middle.
That is what happens, because they say, and well, because at one point, Bucky finds Steve, and Steve's like, where's Peggy? And they're like, she went high. Yeah. So
yeah, in this and then here they go like, I'll go high, you go low.
Yeah.
And we'll meet in the middle. And now,
okay,
I'd like to talk about death count.
I didn't think that you would include a death count in this show, because we normally save it for like Bad Batch and Clone Wars.
I had to.
I know. It was
Not
a lot.
only is this a moment here where she basically like killed 4 guys.
Yeah.
And
this is what I wanted to point out is that Peggy is a lot more murderous than Steve ever was.
Yeah. The only person she basically doesn't kill is the big guy. Who says, Fraulein, I shall mop the floor with you.
Yeah, she just knocks him out. Like, of the people you could have killed, pour one out for all the people that Peggy killed.
So, I got some ice. 51 deaths.
Holy hell!
In a 35-minute show. Almost all of them are from Peggy. Yes, I got the name right. Huzzah. Success Kid. All of them. Now, there's a couple that are not. The bad guy at the beginning shoots the Colonel, and he shoots Stanley Tucci.
Yeah.
And then our 3 heroes.
It's Erskine.
Erskine?
Erskine? Dr. Erskine?
Erskine is the
Schmidt.
Erskine
No.
Anyway, Chad will tell us who he is because I don't remember.
It's Erskine. Dr.
Erskine. What is important, though, is that only 3 are killed by anybody else. And that's these soldiers standing at a door when Bucky and Dum Dum Duggan come running up. They go, blah, 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 blah. And then what's funny is they run into the door, but you don't see the bodies on the floor.
So who kills more people, Falcon or Captain Carter?
Just in terms of death count in time?
Per minute, I guess. Yeah.
It's Peggy hands down.
Yeah, they were mostly.
Yes, all of them are Nazis, so it's okay. And some of them, true, I will point out, they might not be dead, but the prodigious strength she has, the way she hits them with her shield, and they never get back up. And there's never a moment, and this is why I have the death count so high, there is never a moment where we get an establishing shot of groaning men on the ground. We would get those with Steve.
Yep.
You would get, as the guy's like trying to pick himself back up. Now, Steve also uses a gun and shoots a bunch of people, and she doesn't really use a gun.
She holds the gun for a little bit and like threatens somebody with one, but...
And then she's just like, this shield is so much more fun. Wha-bam! You're dead. And wha-bam! And this is me throwing the shield ineffectively. But, wow. So, it was amazing to see happen throughout the entire show. Even Steve doesn't do anything other than fly. He has some little fire.
He's like, hey, baby, fire! You need a ride? And
like he doesn't even. I thought we might catch a moment of him taking out a plane, but why? There's no purpose of that. Yeah,
he has like this electro like type, which also reminds me of Varric again, like of Korra, the electro, like,
the hand.
Yes,
but what's important there is that she does all the work. Because this show's about her. We don't need to see Hydra Stomper stomping on Hydras. We're here to see Peggy Carter do that.
I also think that some of the criticism of this episode is totally not fair. Like, she looks awesome. She's tall and she's very powerful. And there was also some criticism around that it focused on Steve, even though it was about her. But Steve is always going to be in a relation to her, and she's in charge of everything and kicking ass. So
the only time Steve is ever the focus is when we are focusing on the lens,
relationship.
We're seeing Steve through the lens that Peggy sees him through.
Yeah, he's never on his own.
He's
except
never on
for
his own.
With Bucky when he's rescued. But
he's rescued. He's literally saved, and it's a really ineffective saving. And then he comes up to you, like launches through the air to save the day, and all he does is an ineffectual scratch on one tentacle of the monster.
Yeah,
and then his suit dies.
Yeah.
So Steve is not the hero here. He's interesting, and it's a delightful turn because he is a hero.
Yeah.
Inside.
He has all the hero stuff inside. Right. It just took him to have the armor on the outside. Yeah. Yeah. This scene parallels right with the loss of their loved one.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about this one.
And I did because I think that it does an even better job of showing us the relationship between the two. We get genuine sorrow on the part of Steve here as he sees her disappear, and we only just hear, Skinny Steve, and then Haley Atwell as Sharon. I gotta be careful because she's Haley Atwell in both.
She's
First Avengers Peggy versus Captain Carter. Let's just use that. So Peggy here is sad. She's lost him. He's gone, and she misses But it's
framed like, I understand your heroic sacrifice.
Yeah, she still sheds a tear, and she sells the scene.
Yeah.
In First Avenger, we see his disappearance.
Well, we are allowed to emote because she is emoting on the screen and things like that. Yeah.
And in this one here, when Captain Carter makes the sacrifice, I felt more connected with Steve than I did with Haley. Even though Haley Atwell sold this scene so well, it is amazing how just so small and sad. Like there's just this, he was lost without her.
Yeah.
She never felt, Haley Atwell's character didn't seem lost without him.
Well, no, because she was always so capable on her own.
Exactly.
And also wasn't considered to be a partner of his. He had his partners, right? So this is so, the scenes have this same reflection with each other because they both talk about going dancing on Saturday night. And the lines are very different, and it's much shorter in Captain Carter, and I think they hit the beats much more strongly. Well, they had to because they had less time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So time constraints can sometimes create like really solid like concepts and ideas because you're forced to be like, what is the most important thing to say in this moment, and how to get across what we're trying to say. Yeah. And Paris.
So we're done. The end.
Of the walkthrough
of the episode. Captain Carter comes back just the same way as Steve did. There's some similar,
but she says something different.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's played different.
And we talked about that, and I almost forgot it because we talked about it. So Nick Fury's there both times. Both times he's the one that breaks the news that it's been 70 years. The line is almost exactly the same, but
and she's aged too. That was one thing I noticed, that she had wrinkles on her forehead.
Did she?
Yeah.
I don't know if she aged.
Yeah, she looked aged. Like as much as Captain America ages due the super soldier serum, she looked middle-aged rather than. So you think
she was fighting that thing for? I think she was frozen in that moment. Much the same way that he was. Either way, what I did want to reference to though was, and we should come back to the other point, is that Steve's comment in first Avenger, his comment is like, I missed a date.
Yeah.
I didn't get that dance. I didn't show up. And that's his sorrow. She doesn't reference that at all. She lost her partner. She lost the guy that she was falling in love with. But her first thoughts were,
we won the war. Yeah. So interesting.
And it's so interesting to think about how that plays out and what motivates the character from a core perspective.
Yeah,
is very endearing, and also she recognized the stakes that were at play in what she was doing, so much more so than were played out in First Avenger.
The chat has some really interesting comments about whether S.H.I.E.L.D. would start in the same way or whether it would exist. We don't get I don't know we get an understanding that is even S.H.I.E.L.D., but we do know that's Nick Fury, right? And Of course, Hawkeye there. Yeah.
So, and then the person's asking, how do we get S.H.I.E.L.D. if we don't have Sharon Carter? No, Peggy Carter. It's because we have Steve.
Yeah, theoretically.
It's because Steve will rise to that stage, and he'll be the guy that limps around and does it.
And so this last shot is actually from the trailer. We go back
to the art?
Oh, sir. Yeah.
So I did want to talk about one thing, and we talked about the cell shading before, but the route to the cell shading in this show is all taken from almost like oil on canvas or watercolor paintings.
Not watercolor. oil.
Yeah, like I don't know, art. Actual paintings, and there's a couple of times where it's an actual painting, and I think it's all been art, computer generated in the first place. So none of it is actually a painting that they've then captured, which Disney was so well known for in the early days. But you can see that at the point where Johann Schmidt is panned from the science experiment that's happening. And it pans to him. You can see the art, the static art piece transition to the cell shaded animation. And I think what they've done for all of this is find a root of an artistic painting in any given scene and then move that into the cell shaded scenes that we get.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the scenes in Paris, if you look at the scene, like both of those are from Paris, which is just beautiful the entire way through. But even the scenes in the bunkers, in the army tents and whatnot, all of those seem to have been driven directly from a painting of the setting that they then digitally move to a cell shaded environment. And it's so gorgeous. And that's why I rate this show so high.
Yeah.
Because you're visually stimulated and entertained even from minuscule details like that throughout the whole thing.
And the only other animation that we're really watching right now is Bad Batch, consistently. And like this animation is better.
Lots of other things. I'm watching like Centaur World.
Oh yeah, you are watching. Okay, it doesn't really compare animation wise
Invincible.
to Centaur World. Yeah, but comparatively, holy hell, this is gorgeous. Like this is extremely gorgeous. Not to say that Bad Batch, like we were just talking about how much we love the animation in Bad Batch, and then this came out, and we're like, well. Okay. Yeah. This is great.
Things you can do now.
Yeah.
From an animation perspective are just so mind blowing.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
And
beautiful.
So back to the trailer. This was actually a shot that I found in the trailer. And so it looks like Peggy is going to come back and talk with Doctor Strange, which is also really fascinating. So I'm not 100% sure what we're going to get out of this show as relation to the larger MCU. But to me, it seems like they're going to make it at least a little bit important, like a touch, right? To say this is what's happening, or this is what's going to be next, or this is what this means, right? Yeah. I think we're going to get that maybe by the end of this season. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So the last one, and a lot of people have been talking about this, why doesn't she call herself Captain Britain? She even pulls a sword from the stone at one point.
Yes.
And then wields it with this shield of the Union Jack, wearing the Union Jack. Why is this Captain Carter and not Captain Britain? One really easy point to make is that there is already a Captain Britain.
Yes.
But we haven't reached the Excalibur material yet in the Marvel universe, so they don't really want to make Peggy Carter Captain Britain because they don't want to lose that.
But they can say, doesn't that look cool? Wouldn't you like a character that's like that? And then make a character like that, and everybody will be really happy.
Yes. So Brian Braddock is the historical Captain Britain, and now that's the historical. In the modern day, Captain Britain is his sister Betsy Braddock, and she has marvelous purple hair and has a really convoluted and it's a very
although my hair's
history
a little bit more pink right now, so
in the Marvel universe, and I don't doubt that they really want to delve into that at some point, but that's why you can't make Captain Carter Captain Britain. But also, by making her Captain Carter and not standing for an entire people, is because she was on loan from Britain. She joins S.H.I.E.L.D. She never really goes back to Britain. Other than in the TV show where she starts there a little bit and then moves right on to the main world in America, Peggy Carter is always Peggy Carter. And so by using her military rank as Captain Carter, which you would go by if you were a captain, it would be captain in your last name. This is a better and more cogently driven to the character itself. She doesn't stand for a nation. She stands for herself.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important point, even though she pulls the sword from the stone.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
So it looks like we're going to get the T'Challa episode next. At least that's what IMDb says, which of course means we have the actual actor
Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, back.
In his last performance as
T'Challa,
where AC Bradley told him, because he recorded all of his stuff with them over Zoom.
Oh my God.
And she told Chadwick Boseman afterwards, she's like, I just want to let you know that you didn't really bring your A game to this recording. You brought every sports metaphor known to possible man. It was
my God.
That powerful, moving, and the way you are rooted in the fundamentals of this character, I could never ask for more. So I'm prepared to shed a little tear.
Yeah.
Next week, I'm kind of choking up now thinking about the fact that we're going to get his voice in that role one more time.
Yeah, I also think that there's going to be a lot of probably media around it too, because it was the last time he was able to perform this role. I don't know. I loved him in that role, so I.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
We'll see. No, I think I've said what I meant to say, which is that I'm surprised at where they're going with this. I really hope that it actually does play into the MCU. It certainly looks like there's more of that potential than, say, maybe a typical What If comic, right? So I'm really excited to see where this goes and what ends up coming about from it. And for you?
Okay. Hey there. You. I'm talking to you. You liked this a lot, right? You thought Captain Carter was amazing, and you're like, gosh golly gee, Kyle, I sure wish we got to see a live action Captain Carter.
Yes.
Okay. You need to go on your social medias and you need to talk about that.
Yeah.
You need to talk about that for the next couple of months, because Haley Atwell has just spent the last decade of her life working on Mission Impossible 7. She's in the greatest shape. She has learned so much physical combat and physical ability and run around and jumping off walls and stuff that I do not doubt that she could do this.
Oh my God.
2, she has already worked with AC Bradley, not once, but twice. She worked with AC Bradley on another show already, on something else. And AC Bradley wants Captain Carter more than anything. So if you want a Captain Carter, Haley Atwell live action real thing, these two women are invested in doing that. And we need to say, here's our money. Please give it to us, because we will make it happen.
We are willing to pay for this, please.
And Marvel will do that. They're known, Disney especially is known to listening to people and then giving them what they want.
Yeah.
So if we want that Captain Carter out there in the real world, a live action Haley Atwell Captain Carter, bring her back. Let's do this. You can make it happen by talking about it, by spreading the news about it, by hitting people up about it. Do what you can to get Peggy back. Now, one last comment on that. And it slipped my brain too. It was on the same note of that and why I think it's relevant, and it'll come back to me. But go out there and sing the praises, and it will, and so mote it be.
Yeah, make it a big thing. And also, talk about this show. I think it's really great, and especially those people who enjoyed Agent Carter. It would be really, really great to actually see Haley Atwell be able to play Peggy Carter again in the multiverse, because I think that that's what this is trying to get across, showing us, not telling us, which is exceptional storytelling, as Roger Ebert used to say. Show us, don't tell me, or show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Right. Is to say, we wanted this, we got to see it, and anything is actually possible now, which is such a cool thing to say. Yes. Captain Carter versus Sharon Carter. Yes.
Wow. That would be something else.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Everybody wants to do it.
So you have to talk about it. That's also the big thing.
Oh, no, yeah, that reminded me of the last thing. So AC Bradley, our showrunner and writer of this, much like Jack, I can't remember her last name.
Schaefer?
Jack Schaefer. She's actually one of the principal writers on Marvels.
Marvels.
Forthcoming there.
So it seems like they're doing these shows to like set them up for future things. Like we got Jack Schaefer doing Black Widow, doing WandaVision first. That's so cool. I love it.
It's a tight writer's room over there at the MCU. And I don't doubt Kevin Feige has a lot going on in his head at any given day. And I really want to see the whiteboards with the plot lines and the driven lines.
And the trust tree.
Everything in blue here is Jack's.
Yeah.
And everything in pink here is AC Bradley's. And everything in green here belongs to that other person who is doing this other thing. Because that's how it feels like what's happening with their products.
It's a giant mind map. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out. Actually, you should be doing this.
Right. As your host, thank you so much for guesting with me this week, Marie Claire. Where can people find you?
I'm Marie Claire Gould, and my personal Twitter is Marie C. Gould. I'm also known for being a Star Wars podcaster, which you can find at WT4 Show on Twitter, or What the Force on any podcast or YouTube locations.
Yeah, just find more of her on this channel right here.
Yes, also that.
We will be back next week, or at least I will be back. I don't know what's going to happen. We are super excited to present another guest star to join me on this show, and I'm looking forward to digging into the depth of what is to come with What If.
Yes. And make sure to like and subscribe. And of course, if you're subscribed, hit the notification button. We're going to be doing this every Thursday, I think, going forward.
Until it's done.
Yeah, 10 episodes this season is. So we hope to see you back all the time. And thank you, as always, for joining us and participating so much in the chat.
So, what if we ended the show right now?
Okay.
On the edge of a dream, two souls meet in the place between. Awake and asleep, looking for answers. The forest floor, the snow, the sea. Too close it seems, running away from destiny. Maybe fate makes fools of us all. Maybe